Hello, my name is Sarah and we are doing the Equine Wellness Project today. So let's go ahead and get into it. The horse that I was assigned is a 3-year-old gelding and he is entering a training program. So he has no previous experience with exercise or in any training program. It's his first time. And his only other experience that was noted was that he has been turned out with a bunch of other horses his age. So this is going to be a really pivotal transition, both for him mentally and physically. It's kind of self-explanatory why it's a big mental transition for him, but essentially he hasn't worked with humans, he hasn't been, expected to perform, and he's going to be expected to do both of those things coming up here very soon. And there's also a lot of physical development here. A 3-year-old horse is not a fully formed horse, so this is going to be something that we are going to make a lot of decisions about, and let's go ahead and get into that. So the biggest aspect of a 3-year-old horse that is not fully formed yet is going to be his musculoskeletal system. The components of this are going to be his bones, his joints, his spine, his appendicular skeleton, his tendons, his ligaments, his hooves, his muscles, growth plates, skeletal movement, and muscle movement. So all of this is really going to be important when we're making decisions about his training. We're going to get into his training a little bit later, but let's talk about his recommendations, or any horse at this age. A 3-year-old isn't fully formed. The growth plates on a 3-year-old are not fully closed. There is multiple studies to back this up. One study that I thought was worth noting that I based a lot of my training decisions on is a study about Icelandic horses. They took a group of Icelandic horses, and that's important to note because the Icelandic breed is one of the slowest breeds to develop. And by age 3, they looked at their bones and they saw if they had been fused, or if their growth plate bones, if they had fused or if they haven't. And they found that most of the 3-year-olds actually had all of the 3-year-olds in the study had most of their growth plates fused. The key word to focus on here, in my opinion, is most. Although he has most of them, he doesn't have all of them fused most likely, so it's better to strike on the air of caution and to adjust our training. We're not going to be expecting the same from him as I would possibly a fully grown 8-year-old horse per se. Okay, so we want to be able to strike a balance between training in a gentle way and still being able to build muscle. And that was something else that was important to me. We're going to be expecting this horse, he's going to a training program. He's going to be hopefully training and showing for a big portion of his life, and we want him to be prepared. So in order to do that, we are going to be doing gentle movements, gentle exercises with a focus on building muscle, which will also help his bone density. And why we don't want to overdo that is because it actually can cause calcium buildup in the bones, and that can cause a lot of problems now and later in life. Another really significant aspect of keeping his musculoskeletal system healthy is the significance of turnout. He needs to be able to move his body, and he needs to be able to move like a horse, stretch, graze, move around. It is extremely important for his bones, his gut, and his mental health, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so let's talk about our training. We're going to be discussing his first 2 years of training with us. So his first year, he's never had a rider introduced. We're just going to be mostly focusing on groundwork for at least the first 6 months, in-hand exercises, lunging, and also introducing tack. He hasn't had any experience working with humans, so we're going to give him a really great start. Give his body a little bit more time to develop before we introduce a rider. And we would hopefully be doing that by age 3.5. And emphasized during our riding sessions would be gentle but correct and relaxed movements with brief training sessions with adequate warm-up and cool down. He'd be expected to be worked about 3 days a week, and we'd be following the gelding's pace. Okay, let's get into year 2. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. Let's get into year 2. Okay, so we have obviously introduced the rider by this point. We're going to be expecting him to know basic cues and while maintaining relaxation. We can go ahead and expand the training length a little bit here, and we're going to be focusing on basic dressage movements. So this is going to be first level, training level, and maybe even a little bit of second level by the very end of the year. But all of these movements are not extremely weight bearing. He's not going to be doing piaffe. He's not going to be doing anything like that, no jumping, and giving his musculoskeletal system some more time to grow while we're basically just focusing on correct, relaxed movement with the rider at this point. We're going to, of course, continue to go at the gelding's pace, and he's going to be expected to do about 3 to 4 days of riding per week, and still, of course, the ample warm-up and cool-down. We'll focus on confidence, relaxation, balance, and suppleness, kind of basing it off of the German scale of training for dressage. And this doesn't really have to do with his musculoskeletal system, but this is a great time to introduce some time off of the property, either at trail rides, new arenas, or possibly even his first show by the end of the year. Okay, let's talk about his care. So all of his care that I'm going to be talking about today is based on an awareness of his organ development and status at this time of his life. One aspect of his care we're going to be making sure happens is all-day turnout or 24/7 outdoor living. Horses need the ability to forage for long hours on grass, hay, or a combination of both. In the wild, horses will actually forage or graze for 12 to 14 hours per day. And that's extremely important for not only their mental health, but also their gut health. It can prevent colic, it can prevent ulcers, and it's really, so if your horse is per se maybe going through a big life transition like ours, he can have the backup of having a really strong gut health, and it will help his digestive system in the future. He's also going to be having, and it'll help his musculoskeletal system like I talked about previously. Okay, back to the regular vet checkups. He will be having regular vet checkups, of course, including blood and fecal tests, just to see where he's at health and nutritionally wise. The fecal tests will give us good information about deworming practices. Okay, let's move on to the I don't know why I can't say this. Integumentary. Basically, it's a skin. We're going to be going through this really brief because I'm already running out of time here. But the horse's skin is its largest organ. It serves its functions is including defense against microorganisms, protection from weather, sensory perception, thermoregulation, which is temperature control, vitamin D production, pigmentation, and excretion of urea. By 3 years of age, his skin should be well formed and fully functional. He should have a really shiny, healthy coat, sturdy hooves, efficient temperature regulation, and overall just a healthy skin function at this age. Care for his skin at this age, or for any horse's age truly, is going to be frequent hoof trimmings about 6 weeks. Something that I learned during this course is that horses, in order for them to produce vitamin D through their skin, they cannot have a blanket on 24/7. So if it's winter, that's something to consider for your horse. He should be monitoring his temperature well. So if he's not doing that, there could be something off. And another aspect of having healthy skin, just like for humans, is proper nutrition. Okay, let's move on to his digestive system. We already talked about this a little bit, but you can see all the pieces of the digestive system right here in my diagram, but essentially it's the mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, cecum, large intestine, rectum, and his development at this age, his digestive system should be about fully formed. His gut health not may be as strong as possibly an older horse who's had a healthy upbringing. So some things that we would want to take note of for his care. I took note of systematic deworming, ability to graze, like I mentioned, with a low-starch diet, which is optimal for gut health. So yeah, that's essentially it for taking care of his gut. Also, low stress would also help gut health. Okay, we're running at 8 minutes and 40 seconds here, so I'm going to try to wrap this up a little bit faster. A horse's respiratory system is going to include his nostrils, nasal valve, nasal passage, larynx, lungs, trachea, alveoli, and then the pulmonary cavity and ribs. Did I mention that? And that is in chest cavity. There we go. Okay, so proper care of the respiratory system is crucial for a horse's longevity and prevention of diseases like IAD and equine inflammatory airway disease and equine asthma. Those are the two different ones I listed today. Care to prevent these things is going to include things like having clean air, and this is going to be a note of the structure of where your horse is kept. If he's kept in a stall a lot, is there good airflow? Our horse is outside, but we'd still want to take note whenever he's in the stall. Sometimes blowing fans can actually make the problems worse if you don't have proper airflow, because you're just blowing dust particles right into the horse's face and they're breathing it in, and over time that's going to cause things like equine asthma or equine inflammatory airway disease. Another thing that you need to take a note on here is sometimes there's certain beddings that are going to be producing more dust. So let's say a horse already had an inflammatory airway disease, you'd want to find something like peat moss that really doesn't produce any sort of irritants. Let's see what else. We're going to be monitoring our 3-year-old and any horse we work with for any signs of respiratory issues. This is going to be by looking at his nostrils. Is he breathing a normal amount for the amount he's moving? And let's see what else we want to check for. Runny nose, things like that. And that's going to be about it. We want to make sure that we want to keep the trailer ride shorter, especially at his young age. Horses need to be able to drop their heads to be able to clear their respiratory system. And if they are not able to do so, especially with the irritants on the road, it can cause a lot of problems. Okay. Let's get into the cardiovascular. At age 3, his heart should be fully formed and developed. The purpose of the cardiovascular system is that it transports food, oxygen, and other essential minerals to all the cells or materials. I meant to say materials. This includes the heart, blood vessels, which are the arteries and veins, blood, and blood cells. The heart has 4 chambers, and as I said, it's fully developed by this age. His resting heart rate should be between 28 and 44 beats per minute. And his blood pressure should rest around 120/70. And something to note here is the cardiovascular system works with the respiratory system for oxygen transport to the cells and carbon dioxide removal. Okay, I pushed the lymphatic and nervous and endocrine systems all into the same slide here. You can see the lymphatic system on the top, then you can see the endocrine system, and then at the bottom here, I guess I'm kind of blocking it, but you can see the nervous system. The lymphatic system supports the circulatory system, which maintains fluid balance in the horse's body. So this is going to aid in the immune system, which is protecting the horse from infections and diseases. So you ever notice when your limbs are swollen when you have a cold, the same thing happens to a horse? And the possible disease that later I'll talk about something, and it really coincides with the limbs a lot. Okay, and the components are lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, spleen, tonsils, Peyer's patches, and lymphocytes. There's more, but those are the main ones. Okay, let's move on to the nervous system. The nervous system, essentially, its main purpose is to interpret and to respond to the changes inside and outside of the horse's body. So this is really essential for survival, environmental response, as well as the horse's coordination. It's how it moves, it's how it responds. And the central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord, which is the horse's core control. The peripheral nervous system is the communication for nerves for functions like muscle movements and sensory information relay. Okay, let's go on to the endocrine system. The endocrine system actually works with the nervous system to trigger responses from the environment. So this would be regulating various physiological processes through a network of glands and hormones. So basically, the nervous system takes in information, and then the hormone endocrine system is going to respond and produce more of a certain hormone or not. The components of this are the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the adrenal glands, pancreas, ovaries, or testes. Our horse actually doesn't have testes, so he's a little bit different in that regard. The pineal gland, parathyroid glands, and as I said, the 3-year-old's endocrine system is nearly fully developed, but hormonal changes can continue during this time, especially if he has stress or anything like that. Obviously, the endocrine system is always evolving depending on what the nervous system is telling it, essentially. And this is all going to be influenced by lifestyle, exercise, diet, and the horse's overall health. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the excretory system. This is essential for ridding the horse's body of unwanted toxins and substances. It does not involve pooping, which that's what I thought originally, but the products excreted are actually carbon dioxide, nitrogenous waste, and bile pigments. And this is mainly just the kidneys filtering the blood to remove waste products and maintain the horse's electrolyte and mineral balance. And diet and exercise and overall health are going to affect this, just like it will most things of the body. Okay, let's talk about his reproductive system. Our horse, he's 3 years old, but he's a gelding. He's been castrated, which means we removed the testes. The difference between a gelding and an intact stallion's reproductive systems are essentially that the gelding doesn't have its working testes and he is non-reproductive. So he has 2 roots, no functional testes, but he still has his accessory glands, which are the penis, obviously not used for anything except for urination. And geldings are usually used for riding, companionship, anything like that. There could be a stud horse stallion who had a temperament problem possibly, and a solution could be gelding him, castrating him, and that would change his endocrine system and his hormone production. Okay, let's move on. Okay, a common disease that could possibly happen at this age, I'm going to be really fast here, is strangles. You'll know strangles from the really big lymph nodes. It's super contagious. You want to be able to isolate the horses really quickly. Younger horses can be more predisposed because their immune systems aren't as fully formed. And let's say in our horse's case, he's going to a new facility around a bunch of new horses. It's possible that there could be another horse there with strangles. And strangles is caused by Streptococcus equi, which is a type of equi bacteria. Okay, diagnosis is really obvious. Usually it's just the clinical signs, which is a higher fever, usually above 102, swollen lymph nodes that'll eventually start to abscess and then burst. Overall, the horse is just feeling really crummy. It might have a runny nose. It's highly, highly contagious. You want to separate a horse and you want to be really adamant about disinfection. You don't want to touch a horse that has it and then touch another horse. You want to wash your hands, change your outfit. Treatment, you usually just want to let it run its course with good horse husbandry. Prevention is going to be keeping a new horse that enters a property away from the other horses for a certain amount of quarantine period. That's probably the biggest thing to take away here. There's vaccines available, but that doesn't mean you're fully immune. And if a horse has it, you want to be disinfecting good, if not just disinfecting regularly, despite any horses that may or may not have that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Takeaways from this. During age 3, there's a lot going on mentally for this horse, and physically we're going to be making a lot of decisions based off of that, mostly to do with his musculoskeletal structure and also his mind, which we touched on a lot throughout this PowerPoint. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Here are my references. Okie dokes.